Hello, everyone. Welcome to this morning's webinar or this evening's webinar, wherever you may be joining us from. I'm Eileen Caldwell. I'm a board member of FinnFest USA. I'm calling in from Milwaukee, Wisconsin on a beautiful fall day. And I just wanted to welcome everyone to this really exciting webinar. And I also just want to give you all a brief preview of our new festival website for the 2023 FinnFest Festival in Duluth, Minnesota. So let me just share my screen. So this is our brand new festival page. We will have registration available soon. We'll be rolling this out to the general public. And oops, here we go, resume share. So yeah, we're all very excited to be showing off this new look of FinnFest, but also keeping in touch with our traditional values of Nordic culture and learning in an exciting new place in Duluth, Minnesota. And so we'll also have some webinars still coming up for the rest of the year. I know we've got holidays, but we'll have webinars in both November and December. So keep an eye out on your inboxes for registration links and more information about that. And from here, I will turn it back over to Marcus and we will begin the webinar. Thank you.
Thanks. It looks like people weren't able to see the screen share. So we're going to go ahead and we'll do that again at the end there as a way to kind of move us straight into the upcoming events, as well as the events in Duluth next year. That is my child trying to break into the office right now. So things are going great over here. It is lunchtime and he has thoughts. My name is Marcus Cederstrom. The child you hear in the background, that's Oscar. He's turning 2 in about a month. Welcome, everyone. Super glad you could all be here. I am a folklorist at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I'm really excited to be co-hosting. This is our 4th one this year, co-hosting with Anna Rue, also a folklorist at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And we're joined by Saijaleena Rantanen, who's presenting Finnish North American working class women and music in the early 20th century. So welcome to all of you, and welcome to our guest presenter, of course. Thank you to FinnFest for organizing this, as always. Thank you to the Center for the Study of Upper Midwestern Cultures at UW-Madison, as well as the Sustaining Scandinavian Folk Arts in the Upper Midwest project. This is actually the last of the Finnish American Folk Arts series. However, there are going to be 2 more FinnFest events coming up online this year. There will be one in November and one in December. So please make sure you check out the website. Please make sure you register so you get the link to attend. It's been a fantastic year of programming, and we're going to end it strongly with a couple more. As always, this is a live program. It's held on the Zoom webinar platform, and I say that specifically because the webinar platform means that we and Saijaleena cannot actually see or hear the audience, but you all hopefully can see and hear us. If you can't, please let us know. And if you have questions, put them in the little Q&A button at the bottom of your screen there to ask those questions. Feel free to use the chat to engage with each other, to engage with us. We're going to be sharing those questions, those comments with Saijaleena, so she doesn't have to do everything. We're recording this as usual. We're going to be sharing it through the FinnFest website, as well as the YouTube channel for the Center for the Study of Upper Midwestern Cultures. As always, when I start these things, when I welcome you all to FinnFest, the Folklife series, I ask that we all kind of take a moment to think about place. I say this every time. I work at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, which lies on Ho-Chunk land. And I say that because I want to acknowledge where we are. I want to acknowledge that we cannot tell the story of immigration of history, of heritage, of family, of friends, of Finnish America, without also telling the story of indigeneity and understanding where we came from, where we are, who came before us, and who is going to come after us. Because of course, this question of immigration and indigeneity is continuing to happen today. There are plenty of people moving in still. And so as we gather from places around the country and around the globe, take a moment to think about that. Take a moment to think about where you live. Take a moment to think about the people that are kin to you in that area and those that aren't. And think about how the place, the land, has actually changed over time, how it's changed in front of and with you. All of these connections have helped shape who we are and shape the places that we live in today. We're going to hear some of that actually when we think about music and work and the work that women are doing as immigrants in this country and how they reflect on that life. So embrace all of this, reflect on it. In the coming days, I really encourage you to reach out to all of the amazing organizations. Find your local historical society, send them an email, check in with them, see what ethnic organizations are they working with, what indigenous organizations are they working with, and support those. We are all connected in this long history on this country. So with that, I want to introduce Saijaleena. Saijaleena works as a university lecturer at the Sibelius Academy of the University of the Arts, Helsinki. She's a music historian. Her research interests are in social, political, and cultural history of music. She's particularly interested in people and phenomena that have been marginalized in history. That's what we're going to hear about today. Her research interests include migration, labor history, and the role of women as musical and cultural influencers. In her current research project, she's studying the music culture of the Red Finns in North America and Soviet Karelia from the late 19th century until the late 1930s. She's also working, and we're not going to hear about this today, but I'm going to say it anyway. She's also working on a collaborative project about T-Bone Slim, the Finnish American IWW member, poet, and songwriter. She's also a musician herself. So we're super lucky to have her joining us from Finland today. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Saijaleena and ask that she, of course, unmute herself, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Yes, thank you very much, Markus, and thank you for the nice presentation. And hello, everybody. Good day from my part as well. I am very happy to be here today, and thank you also for the invitation. And now I will start with sharing my screen, and then we will go from there. Yes. And here we go. Okay, so as Markus was already saying, at the moment I am doing research on the music culture of Finnish North American immigrants from the late 19th century until the 1930s. And my main perspective is particularly on the so-called Red Finns, meaning people who participated in the activities of socialist and communist groups, as well as the IWW industrial workers of the world. Also, my aim is to widen my geographical perspective to cover Soviet Karelia, where approximately 6,500 Finnish North Americans left to look for a better future at the beginning of the 1930s. Among those who left were many artists and musicians. However, the political situation in Ukraine at the moment makes it quite impossible to improve this goal. Luckily, there are some existing research materials I can use without actually traveling to Russia. And one of the main branches of my project is women and their role as cultural and musical activists in the early 20th century in North America. Despite the fact that immigration has been studied extremely and quite extensively also in Finland, relatively little is known about the lives and activities of immigrant women. In particular, the impact of women in music and cultural activities in general has largely remained obscured by history. What is clear, however, is that women played an active role in migrant communities. They formed their own associations and sewing circles, which were important in educating immigrant women and forming networks among them in different professions. Women also participated in the organization of various cultural events and musical activities, which played a key role in promoting integration and sense of community among the immigrants. And just a few words about the word forgotten in the title of my research project. It basically refers to a fact that this area is really something that hasn't really been researched before so much as a whole. And with my project here, I am aiming to fill this gap in history writing concerning Finnish immigrants and Finnish immigration in general. And I would like to start with the music. We will first hear Katri Lammi, a famous Finnish operetta singer whose career ended in a very dramatic way. I will talk more about Katri Lammi in the end of my lecture, but now let's listen to her for a while. The song is called Tummat silmät, Dark Eyes by Florian Herman. The recording has been made in New York with the Finnish orchestra directed by William Stein in November in 1930. And here we go. Yes. Yes. And here you can see Katri Lammi and her husband Jukka Ahti there in the picture. Finnish immigrants were active in collecting music, especially song lyrics. Women, working class women in particular, played a prominent role as song collectors and also excelled as songwriters. In my lecture today, I will talk about the songs written by and about women. My aim is to analyze the contents, meanings, and functions of these songs. What kinds of topic did they deal with? What were their underlying goals? How were they used on different occasions? The focus will be on women who were active in and influenced by the North American labor movement, as the labor movement offered women many cultural and social opportunities. In addition, most of the Finns who emigrated were peasants and workers, which contributed to the activism of Finnish women when it came to the debates on women's empowerment, equality, and voting rights that began in North America in the early 20th century. In this lecture, my main research material consists of 3 songbooks collected and published by Finnish members of the Radical Workers Union, the Industrial Workers of the World, also known as the Singing Union because of the important role of the music in the movement. These books are Proletarilauluja, Proletarian Songs, which was published in 1918, Raatajainlauluja, Songs of the Toilers in 1920, and Palkkaoriainlauluja, Songs of the Wage Slaves in 1925. These songs and songbooks offer an interesting and quite rare opportunity for reflecting the social and political identities of the women migrants at the grassroots level. In order to understand the songs and their message, however, it is first necessary to trace the stages of women's migration, as well as their political organization and cultural activities at the turn of the 20th century. Also, migration to North America was male-dominated. Men returned to Finland more often than women. As a result, the quantitative imbalance between the sexes among the immigrants was not so great in the end. According to immigrant researcher Reino Kero, in 1910, 39% of Finnish-born, Finnish-speaking immigrants in the United States were women. 20 years later, in 1930, the proportion of women was 46%, and on the East Coast in some states, women may even have outnumbered men. In Canada, the percentage distributed in the same manner. In 1911, 35% of Finnish immigrants were women, and by 1931, the share had risen to 42%. Many women who emigrated traveled with their husbands, but especially in the 1890s and afterwards, there were many young unmarried women aged 16 to 24 who left to North America to find work just as men did. Women who traveled alone often settled in large cities such as New York, Chicago, Boston, and Seattle. They were typically employed as servants, laundresses, and in industry. Finnish women reportedly had a reputation as good workers, which meant that there was work available for anyone who wanted it. For example, there were more vacancies for servants than there were takers. The maids who worked in North American homes also adapted more quickly to their new environment, as they were taught local customs and familiarized with current fashions. At the same time, many women of Finnish background, often from primitive rural backgrounds, learned the wonders of modern world by working in homes with electricity, gas stoves, and various appliances. Although servant work was hard and did not earn the women a lot of money, the pay was relatively good compared to many other immigrant women's occupations or women's wages in Finland. At the same time, North America offered young women a different kind of economic and social freedom from what would have been possible in Finland at the same time. And this is also one of the reasons why North America was also called as women's paradise. But naturally, there were problems as well. Some women found success as logging cabin hosts in the cooperative movement, which was very typical for Finns, and as entrepreneurs. Women usually found work either through acquaintances or through employment agencies, which were also run by Finns. In Canada, women also worked as bootleggers. These women were often widows whose legal income was not enough to support their families. And interestingly, this profession was practiced by as many as several hundred Finnish women in the early 20th century. Another interesting group of immigrant women was the Marys in Pants. The name referred to women living independently in the vast wilderness areas of Michigan, Maine, Wisconsin, and Washington states, among other places, who supported themselves by hunting and fishing. Women also acted as poets, artists, and traveling musicians. Perhaps the most famous woman of Finnish descent in North America who made her career in music was and still is the accordionist Viola Turpeinen, born in the United States in 1909. Turpeinen was discovered by John Jukka Roosendahl, who emigrated to the United States in 1908 to follow his brother. Turpeinen was only 16 years old at the time when she started to work with Roosendaal. Roosendaal was a traveling musician who played violin and banjo and had done many other professions before that as well. He heard Turpeinen play at the Finnish Hall in Michigan, saw her potential as a musician and invited her on tour with him. Roosendaal served not only as Turpeinen's playing partner, but also as her manager, training Turpeinen to be a star of her time. They performed together for several years, making extensive successful tours of Finnish territories around the United States and recording for both the Victor and Columbia labels in New York. The duo also visited Finland once and made quite a large tour here. In between tours and recordings, Turpeinen received playing lessons from well-known Italian accordionists. The duo later grew into a trio when Sylvia Polso, a young accordionist like Turpeinen, joined Turpeinen and Roosendaal in the early 1930s. Sylvia Polso was also called a Finnish Greta Garbo by her looks. And it is important to note, as Polso argues herself in her letter to Tim Leary, which Tim just actually sent me to read, and I want to thank you very much if you are there, that this is very, very important material in general. There was some scrapbook material as well. However, Polso is saying that there were not so many women accordionists in the US at the same time, during that time when they were touring with Viola and John Roosendaal. So both Turpeinen and Polso were pioneers making way for women in music business. And now we will hear another music example. This recording is of Turpeinen, Polso and Roosendaal, and it was made in New York for the Victor Recording Company in August 1931. And the tune is a folk music medley called Kaikuja tanssisalista, echoes from the dance hall would be the direct translation. And Polso and Turpeinen are here playing accordions and Roosendaal is playing violin. And now I will stop this for a moment and yes. Here we go. And so on. So, immigrant women were actively involved in associations, which were also popular in Finland at the same time. Contacts with Finland were close, especially in the early stages of migration, which is why many associations and clubs were inspired by the Finnish models. Many first-generation immigrants had already been involved in association activities in Finland. Immigrant women participated in associations together with men, but also set up their own committees and sections. They also founded newspapers, actively participated in and organized various cultural activities, and created networks in the wider American society as well. The activation of women in associations coincided with the rise of the Finnish North American labor movement. Before that, the first women's associations to be founded in the United States were the sororities of Astoria and San Francisco and Pyrkiä in New York in 1893, followed by Suomalainen naisyhdistys, Finnish Women Association Kalume in 1894. Pyrkiä's primary aim was to solve and alleviate the problems of Finnish servants. Naisten osuuskoti, women's cooperative home, was also set up in New York for the same purpose, as it aimed to serve as a holiday home and to help servants find employment. Finnish women in San Francisco also set up their own employment agencies. Following the examples mentioned above, women's associations were increasingly established in Finnish regions. As in the United States, women's associations were also common in Canada. Women started Finnish language Sunday schools and English language evening schools, opened libraries, and in some places also distributed sickness and funeral aid. Women were forced to set up their own help funds, as the policies of the fund generally set up for the protection of Finnish immigrants forbade women's membership. Without setting up their own funds, women ran the risk of being left without the support they needed, for example, in the event of illness. Culture and education were in the center of women's activities. Education was often seen as the only way for freedom and enlightenment. As being said, most of the immigrants who left Finland for North America and almost all of those who moved to Canada belonged to the working class. This contributed to the immigrants' activity in the North American labor movement, but simultaneously meant that there was a notable lack of educated middle and upper class women among the Finnish immigrants. This created a hierarchy in the immigrant communities that was quite different from the prevailing class hierarchies in Finland, Canada, or US at the same time. Women who were in leadership positions in Finnish associations could be domestic servants or cooks in the logger cabins. There were hundreds of ordinary, hardworking, and uneducated women in women's organizations, running meetings, writing newspaper articles, organizing trade unions, and raising money. These women were well known and respected in their communities. They were not theorists or idealists, but hard workers who looked after the affairs of both women and men in the association. In their own clubs, women also learned about holding and chairing meetings, as well as writing, debating, and public speaking, with the aim of being able to participate in social activities as equal members. The little free time that was available was often spent in halls. In socialist halls, political objectives were mixed with social activities. A wide range of cultural activities, such as soirees, concerts, dances, plays, meetings, rehearsals for choirs and orchestras, and so on, were organized in the halls. The premises could also house a Finnish school and a library. And as is known, halls were the centers of cultural activity for Finnish immigrants in both the United States and Canada. Workers' associations in particular were active in organizing events. And according to Varpo Lindström, who has done extensive research on the activities of Finnish women in Canada, the position of Finnish women combined with the circumstances of immigrant women largely determined their attitudes and role in the prevailing political climate. She argues that Finnish immigrant women in Canada were, I quote, the most ardent supporters of socialist action. In her book about Finnish immigrant women in Canada from 1890s to 1930s, Lindström discusses women's lives from various perspectives, including their role in the labor movement. Her starting point is that, I quote again, the real history of women describes the ongoing activity of women in a world defined by men, but on their own terms. End of the quote. In her research, Lindström uses triangulation to approach migrant women's experiences from the perspectives of gender, migrant experience, and ethnicity. These elements form the cultural frame of reference within which migrant women of Finnish origin operated. Working class consciousness, the establishment of women's suffrage in Finland in 1906, the first in Europe, and entry into parliament a year later also gave impetus to the Finnish North American women's movement. In the United States, the debates on women's suffrage progressed more slowly and varied from state to state. As a result, at the national level, women had to wait relatively long time until 1920 for the right to vote. In Canada, except for the province of Quebec, women received unlimited suffering even a little bit later in 1922. According to Marianne Margelin, who has studied Finnish immigrant women in the United States, the early women's movement, which began in the late 19th century, did not yet raise the issue of suffrage. However, because of the close Finnish connections, Finnish women's right to vote in the early 20th century prompted women to consider their status and rights more closely in North America. For them, the situation of Finnish women became not only a model and symbol of women's rights, but also a justification for direct action in the promotion of equality. Prior to the activism of the labor movement, the temperance movement had a key influence on the development of women's independence among Finnish Americans from the 1890s onwards, particularly in Brooklyn, New York, and Calumet, Michigan. Socialists did not initially rise to the same level of vigor in the advocacy of women's rights, as socialism was seen as an egalitarian ideal that would automatically be realized when socialism would become a dominant ideology. However, things changed in 1909, which Carl Ross calls the year of the feminist resurgence among Finnish North American women. The number of women's associations grew considerably, and women's suffrage and independent political action became active among socialists. At the same time, newspapers became active on the issue. According to Ross, the Finnish language newspaper Naisten Lehti, women's paper, became the official mouthpiece of the Finnish Suffrage Association. At the same time, Finnish women were becoming a familiar sight at suffrage parades in major North American cities. Women of Finnish background also became active in the anarcho-syndicalist IWW and formed a very active and strike-prone group within the organization. So, as noted earlier, migrant women were also active in the field of music, although little is known about their activities in the area. Women sang in choirs, organized various musical events, and wrote songs. Women were also the subject of songs. Songs written by women can be found in labor songbooks, particularly in North America. Labor movement was notoriously sympathetic to a wide range of musical and other leisure activities, which is why the role of women as songwriters or poets, for example, was emphasized within the movement. Songs were a very concrete expression of social grievances and challenges they faced, as well as the aims of action. The same themes mentioned earlier, such as women's rights and suffrage, can also be found in poems and songs written by women. One example of this is Hanna Lehtinen's poem Siskoille, for sisters, that you can now see here in the screen. It was published first in a newspaper and after that in the Socialist songbook, and it was quite typical that some of the poems ended up in songbooks as well. Hanna Lehtinen's song calls on sisters to fight for civilization and freedom before it's too late. She says, "Let us leave the dark cabin, sisters, let us search for the light. We shall break all the shackles which deprived us of happiness and life. We look for happiness in this life, peace and bliss for our souls. We won't save it for beyond the grave." The song appeals to women to take the action for their children and their loved ones to avoid a miserable and gloomy life, and calls for equality for women in the drafting of new laws. According to Lehtinen, the fight had to be waged with energy and dignity, because that was the only way to achieve visible results. The song ends with a reminder of the demanding nature of the task, because equality could not be achieved without hard work. And according to Hanna Lehtinen, great is our task, sisters, before life is renewed, before we hope to see how society is reforming. And I have to say about the translations, they are by me, and it has been a bit tricky to make the translations. The language is old, and the poems don't always rhyme. But however, I think it's the most important thing that you will get the idea behind them, and I hope that you will. I have the Finnish lyrics for these as well, if some of you are interested in seeing them. Then we go to the IWW songbooks. So in the 3 Finnish language songbooks published by Finnish Wobblies, there are a total of 23 songs written by, about, and for women. This figure is quite small in relation to the total number of the songs, which is 243, but nevertheless reflects the involvement of women, not only in the movement, but also in songwriting, which, as many other responsibilities in early 20th century association life, seems to have generally been a male-dominated task. It is also worth noting that many of the songs deal with workers, brothers and sisters in general, with both sexes taken into account. Thus, there is no reason, nor need to draw a clear distinction between male and female songs. However, it is interesting to look at the nature and content of these so-called women's songs. The IWW was a prominent advocate for equality and equity between women and men, black or white, which is evident in the songs under review as well. So based on the books, one of the most popular songs about women's activism was a Finnish translation of the song Rebel Girl, which is probably not surprising. And it was composed by the IWW's main songwriter, Swedish-American Joe Hill. And this song can be found in all 3 Finnish language songbooks as 2 slightly different translations. There are probably people here in the audience today who know the history behind the song already, but Hill wrote the song for her good friend, Elizabeth Gurley Flynn, who is also here in the picture. She was an activist, feminist, suffragette, and by all accounts, a prominent leader of the IWW. Gurley Flynn was also active in social issues outside the union. And the song was a tribute to the work and influence of women in the IWW, and again, at the same time, sought to attract more women to the cause. And it goes, that's the rebel girl to the working class, she's a precious girl. She brings courage, pride, and joy to the fighting rebel boy. We've had girls before, but we need some more in the industrial workers of the world, for it's great to fight for freedom with the rebel girl, and so on. Hill himself advocated for more active participation by women in the movement, and it is reported, and it's actually said in Elizabeth Gurley Flynn's memoirs, that while awaiting the execution of his death sentence in Salt Lake City, Hill wrote to Gurley Flynn as follows: "You were my inspiration, and when I composed my Rebel Girl, you were there to help me. Because you were the idea behind it, I want to give you all the credit for the song now as I go away. Now try to find rebellious girls like yourself, because they are needed and needed badly." Interestingly, in Finland, this or other Wobbly songs have not really been heard before or even now. And I'm not sure, it would be interesting to know, perhaps we have some time to discuss about this in the end of the lecture, but I would be interested in hearing your views about the use of these songs among the people with Finnish roots today. But in Finland, there is one record, only one record for a long time about kind of filled with IWW songs. It was the record of the Turun ylioppilasteatterin lauluryhmä, the singing group of the Turku Student Theatre, and the record was called The Songs of Joe Hill. And it was recorded already in 1975. And after this, the next album of the IWW songs was released only in 2019 by Laulava Unioni, the singing union. The band was put together in 2016 after my long archival trip to North America, when I found a lot of interesting material concerning the music culture of Finnish Wobblies. And now, next, I would like to play you the newest Finnish version of the song Rebel Girl. Last spring, we planned a concert for the songs of the North American Finns with the music journalist Pekka Laine. The concert was organized in Työväen musiikkitapahtuma Workers' Music Festival in Valkeakoski in June. The program included a new translation of Rebel Girl by a singer-songwriter Topi Saha that you can see here in the left. New translation is based on the two existing translations in the historical Finnish IWW songbooks. But because neither of the translations really fits the melody of the song, we wanted to have an updated version that others could sing in the future as well. And in the concert, the song was performed by a famous Finnish singer, Vuokko Hovatta, who is here. But here you can see Topi Saha himself. This is the first demo version of the song, recorded with a telephone voice recorder, but I think it's quite good. And let's listen to it for a while.
Ei kahtakaan oo samanlaista tässä maailmassa kavalassa. Joku hienossa silkissä kulkee asutalossa valtavassa. Sinikuulalla kaulalla loistaa nauha helmien valkoisten. Mut tuota elvämpi yhä ja aina on tyttö punainen. Hän on punainen, tuli punainen ja ylpeä työväen lukkainen. Hänen rohkeudestansa on voimaa nousta uhmaamaan noita kierroja, markkinan lieroja ja ylivaltaa ahneuden. Kun semustani suojaa tuo tyttö punainen. Aatteensa kangasta karkeaa ja ne mustannut on kova työ. Vaan puhdas on ylpeä sydän, joka kiivaasti rinnassa lyö. Rahaherrat ne kauhuissaan vapisee, viho viimeisen ymmärtäen, et heitä ylvämpi yhä ja aina on tyttö punainen.
Yes. So, as in the examples above, similar aims were again expressed in the song Ylös naiset, Rise All Women, which called on all women to participate in the action because, according to the song, there is no way to freedom but by fighting. The song deals with women's position as slaves and sacrificial cows who were subservient even to their husbands, and pointed out that this could be changed through activism. At the same time, the song called for women to forget their characteristic timidity, shyness, weakness, and modesty, and to join the struggle that would liberate them from oppression. And the song goes like this: all sisters pick up the battle sword. Do not think yourself as unimportant, because we have the power. Let's step in line with pride and cast away these shackles of oppression. The lyricist of Rise All Women is unknown, but the tone of the song suggests that it could have been written by a woman. The author identifies with the sisters, and the song addresses and presents the subordinate position of women in a manner that conveys a strong personal experience. For example, sisters, our sale has always been frocks and trinkets, children's toys, lectures, flattery. We have suffered a plenty, we have gnawed or refused, hands out fool's oaths have been our feet, and so on. The same message continues again in the song called Naiset taistoon, Women for Battle. It calls for women to join men in solidarity and to help those who are languishing in prisons. In the ranks of the IWW, it was not unusual to be imprisoned. In addition, one more song, Siskoille, for sisters, again the same name that Hanna Lehtinen's poem, also calls for women to join the common front, and you can see the poem here in red in the middle of the slide. Grab the battle sword, sisters, let us break the locks of oppression, let us join the ranks with pride and remove these shackles. So it's kind of repeating the same themes in these songs. And the songs of the Finnish Social Democrats and Member of Parliament Hilja Liinamaa, later Pärssinen, were also published in these songbooks. For example, there was a song called Idän sankareille, for the heroes of the East, published in 2 of these Finnish language IWW songbooks. The songs written by Pärssinen were published elsewhere in North America as well. For example, she edited a music edition, Laulukirja lapsille, a collection of children's songs published in Astoria, Oregon in 1914. This book is believed to be the first songbook in Finnish for children and their families published in the socialist labor movement, containing both the words and the music for the songs. Also, the unidentified pseudonym Emmi, which is a Finnish woman's name, wrote several song lyrics, such as Raatajan lauluja, Workers' Homeland, published in two of the Wobbly songbooks, and her own lyrics also for the well-known Kaivantomiesten laulu, Song of the Miners, about the hard-working conditions of immigrants. Women in the IWW protested strongly against the poor conditions in the mines and became even more radicalized by the increasing number of mining accidents in which many lost their husbands and were left alone to look after their families. Women took part in strikes, trade union marches, and mass funerals following these accidents, and music, especially brass bands, played a key role in setting the mood of the occasions. Emmi also composed the lyrics for the IWW March, which called for everyone to organize and join the One Big Union. 2 of the books also contain a Finnish translation of the song by Ellen Connor, Stand Up Your Workers. So it's interesting collection of kind of both Finnish songs and also songs, American songs and other songs of other ethnic group as well. And this was quite rare concerning Finnish labor songs or any kind of worker songs in general at the time. And written by a Finnish poet, Kössi Kaatra, and published in the songbook Song of the Toilers in 1920, and also in the Song of the Wage Slaves in 1925, Punaisen Ristin tyttö, Red Rose Girl, presents another interesting song in praise of women's activities, as it tells the dramatic story of a female nurse during the Finnish Civil War in 1918. Kaatra fled the Civil War to northern Sweden, from where he delivered his war-related songs to both United States and Soviet Russia. According to Ilpo Saunio and Timo Tuovinen, who are the pioneers of the Finnish working-class music research, Red Rose Girl was published in St. Petersburg in 1920 in a book called Songs of Revolution under the pseudonym Outlaw. These Finnish Wobbly songbooks show that the song was also published in the by the IWW in the United States in the same year. So this is very interesting to follow how these songs traveled as well and how they ended up in these songbooks. Interestingly, the IWW songbooks also published several prison camp songs related to the Finnish Civil War in 1918. They were composed by former fighters of the Red Guards and the widows, and often children of deceased Red Guard fighters. Many prison camp songs about the horrors of the Civil War survived thanks to the recordings and books produced in the United States. As it was difficult to perform or even publish these songs in Finland after the war. Among the songs in the book Songs of the Wage Slaves in 1925 is a haunting song called Hennalan vankileirillä, in the Hennala prison camp, where many women lost their lives alongside the men. And one verse of the song goes like this. Who could recount all the terrors suffered at the Hennala camp? the din and thunder of rifles as brothers, sisters were slain. O disgraceful Hennala, heaven and earth are crying out, trample the tyrants. And although the song's narrative of the camp and its conditions is horrible, its vision of a new tomorrow for the oppressed labor movement is hopeful in a manner typical to prison camp songs. Despite the bitter defeat, the Red Guard fighters still believed in the victory of their cause, and this mindset was a perfect fit for the IWW. Perhaps the most touching of women's songs in these three books is Langeneen laulu, Song of the Fallen One. According to Timo Tuovinen, Song of the Fallen One is, as far as we know, the only Finnish language workers' song that defends the rights of sex workers. Although North America was called a paradise for women, not everyone had luck. Many women of Finnish origin ended up as prostitutes. Interestingly, however, Varpu Lindström points out that in Canada, the Finnish prostitute was not a young, misguided girl, but a woman, usually at least 30 years old, but often older. They were also not necessarily shabby or sloppy, but neatly dressed women who might typically have been highly educated. It is clear, however, that being a sex worker was certainly the last option for most women. As a result of the IWW's push for equality, prostitutes had their own local branches in the movement. Song of the Fallen One sheds a very harsh light on the dark side of this work. The song depicts the everyday life of sex workers marked by shame and contempt. For my precious daily bread, I sacrifice my entire life, it says. At times, the clients may have been the same people who publicly were the most vocal critics of the prostitute's work. And here is an example of this kind of situation pictures in the song. This is my part in the wild drama of life. As I look behind the curtains, I see many sanctimonious faces as they are stripped of their disguise. Just give me all your smut, your filth, I cannot stoop any lower. But those who tear down your curtains will discover my lifeblood behind them. The lyrics of this song are also particularly personal and tell the story of the prostitute's work in detail. Perhaps the author has practiced the profession herself or at least seen it up close. Finally, there are a few mother theme songs in the books. Äidin haudalla, on mother's grave, and Äidin huolet, mother's worries. The theme of both songs is orphanhood in the situation where hard work has exhausted or will exhaust both the father and the mother. So it can be said that these songs show a very hard part of life that some Finnish immigrants had to live and face in North America. However, they found comfort and strength also in the common struggle for better conditions and for the future of their children and themselves also. The women who left to become migrants were an exceptional group that stood out from the rest. According to Varpu Lindström, Finnish immigrant women in Canada developed a defensive capacity in the face of suspicion, criticism, and stereotypes about their gender, often in a defiant manner. When embarking on the long journey across the Atlantic, immigrant women defied not only the poverty and misery in Finland, but also their own bodies, the traditional Lutheran religion, Canadian society, and ultimately even its legal and political order. According to Lindström, Finnish immigrant women in Canada developed their own quite independent history in the labor movement. Women's practical socialism, as she puts it, was particularly focused on issues related to women's lives. Among immigrant women, self-development through studying and generally raising awareness of women's rights were important. In addition, culture was close to the women's hearts, and artistic pursuits were generally considered to be educational. For many, music, for example, was an important and dear hobby. For some, it became a profession, but for everyone, it was the way to influence. The women's activity and awareness of the problems around them was astonishing in a situation where a large proportion of the women in charge were uneducated and spoke only Finnish. They were an exceptionally courageous group who managed to find their place in a male-dominated world and who were prepared to sacrifice themselves for their cause. Women fought safety nets by helping, accompanying, and supporting each other in their everyday life and in social activities, such as organizing, learning to make and deliver speeches, writing newspapers, and picketing. On a larger scale, the main objectives of the activist working class women were equality and the right to vote, which requires the involvement of all able-bodied immigrant women. But who were these brave women and what did they do to survive? What was their life like away from home? One of the most tragic fates was that of Katri Lammi, who we listened at the very beginning of the presentation. She was an operetta star who made her name in New York's working class halls and left for Soviet Karelia with her husband Jukka Ahti and some other artists to build a successful career in a new socialist utopia. The year was 1931. It is not known whether Lammi herself was a communist supporter, but she is known to have performed at a hall called the Temple of Work, run by communists of Finnish background. However, this does not prove anything since it was common for artists to perform at halls regardless of political affiliation. She may also have been attracted by her friends and colleagues' decision to leave, as well as by future job opportunities. But it is also quite possible that Lammi, who sang and recorded workers' songs, felt like that the ideological atmosphere in Soviet Karelia was her own. All went well at first, but Lammi's fate, like that of many others, was sealed by Stalin's persecution. Lammi did not lose her life, but was sent to a prison camp and lost both her husband and many friends in the persecutions. She apparently died in Valamo Island in the 1950s and reportedly never appeared in public again. Lammi's story is one of many that need to be unraveled, and it is time to give these brave migrant women a voice and let it be heard. I will end my presentation with a musical example of this day. Aija Purtinen and her band Brooklynin Satu, Brooklyn's Fairy Tale, have created some great new songs based on the lives and stories of the Finnish North Americans. The song I play now is called Brooklyn's Fairy Tale, as the name of the band, and the story is located in Brooklyn's Finn town somewhere in the early 20th century. In the song, the living and working conditions are difficult, but the faith in the future and a better life in the Brooklyn fairy tale, which refers to the American dream, does not fade.
Fintown Brooklyn se 9. stoppi. Sillä meidän pikkunen soppi. Ei ees kunnon aparttimentti, yhden petiruuman basementti. Vaikkon kylmä annoin ukolle nootin, kun viime yön nukkui kanssa overcoatin. Sain serkulta unessa telegrammin. Tulkaa Miamiin, tääl on lämmin. Raha ei lately juurikaan tullut, meitä kyttää yksi yksinäinen hullu. Naapurin vanha Oulun misis, joka kaiken tietää. Precis. 5 Ja kun rankka sade lankeaa katuun, kun viimeinen valo haipuu, me uskotaan Brooklynin satuun. On jäljellä uni ja kaipuu. Ja kun rankka sade lankeaa katuun, kun viimeinen valo haipuu, me uskotaan Brooklynin satuun. On jäljellä uni ja kaipuu. Huomenna hautajaiset hurrikaanipentin. Siksi kai uuden permanentin. Pena kännissä pois nukku niin kuin tukki. On kiva saada new looki. Vaikei se on niin necessary juttu, kun muutosta ei huomaa edes tuttu. Me ollaan niin väsyneitä tekemään työtä. Arkisin, pyhisin ja keskellä yötä. Voi kuin saa sellaisen vitamiinin, joka korvais korsin ja aspiriinin. Jos joku palkkais mun hulttio herran, niin maybe mä saisin sen reitiön kerran. Ja kun rankka sade lankeaa katuun, kun viimeinen valo haipuu, me uskotaan Brooklynin satuun. On jäljellä uni ja kaipuu. Ja kun rankka sade lankeaa katuun, kun viimeinen valo haipuu, me uskotaan Brooklynin satuun. On jäljellä uni ja kaipuu. On jäljellä uni ja kaipuu.
Thank you very much. And here is my email address if there is anything you want to, if you have anything you want to contact me for, or some comments or material or memories or stories, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Saijaleena. That was really wonderful. We've got quite a few questions. People are singing your praises in the comments. Really enjoyed the presentation. Anna, do you wanna take a couple of the questions here, and I'll look through the chat real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Saijaleena. We do have a few questions, and one coming from Lindsay Holstrom. What was the term you used to describe the financially independent women from the Midwest? Did you use the term Mary's pants?
Mary's pants, yeah.
Okay. Do you know what the origin of that is, or could you tell us more about that, or is that just a term you've seen there?
Yeah, actually, this is some, I have to say as well that I am quite at the beginning of this looking to doing research on these women. So there is a lot of things to discover because there are not so much material either. So unfortunately, I can't say this is very interesting, and I can't say I don't have an answer to this because this was very kind of new for me too, and I would really much want to kind of find something in the archives about these women. I'm not sure if actually Marianne would know more, because I think she has been doing some research, and it's very, actually, thank you for the book. I have been using a lot of this Women Who Dared article collection, and perhaps she knows more. Yeah.
Well, thanks. It's nice to have some mysteries and things on the horizon to be continued.
Real quick, can you repeat it again? It was
Mary's in Pants.
Mary's in Pants. Mary's in Pants. Great. We had someone asking that in the chat there also. Mary's in Pants. Love it. Thank you.
Makes me want to learn more about it as well. So we had another question as well, asking if whether Finnish women were as engaged in social action in Finland, as well as in North America and Canada, and could you say more about the role of women in the labor movement and struggle in Finland?
In Finland? Yes. Well, Finnish women were active in Finnish labor associations as well, but it was quite different political atmosphere here. I think that from my perspective, it seems to me that they had more possibilities in the United States and Canada, even though, of course, women were kind of a lot, how do you say it, kind of, they needed to be home to take care of their families and so on. And it was a problem in a way that they couldn't go to the meetings and so on as men did. But I see that it was not so at the same time in Finland. As I said, like that, for example, these women who left to North America, they had like totally different economical and kind of independent possibilities to work independently than in Finland at the time. So it was different in Finland. It was not that easy.
Thank you. Someone else is asking also about this group, the group called the Maccabees, and involvement in the Maccabees. Do you know anything about that group and whether there's research?
Sorry, Maccabees.
And it's something I've heard of and I'm not familiar with.
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
The Maccabees, Macabees.
No, I'm not familiar with that. No.
We'll try to follow up on that. But just a question.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Familiar. Yeah. And yeah, I guess we have a question coming in from Jim too, Jim Leary, and he's asking, is there a relationship between J. Karjalainen's Finnish American trilogy of recordings and the more recent work of Lauluaivi Unioni?
A singing union. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I don't think so, actually. I have been kind of I know that J. Karjalainen and Paleface, who is the kind of the singer in the band, main singer in the singing union, they know each other, but at least for now, I don't think that they are cooperating. And it was actually, you probably know that this wonderful new song by J. Karjalainen, this Oulu, Wisconsin. Do you know that song? Yeah, it's really wonderful, and it's kind of that's kind of something that J. Karjalainen, he hasn't released any migration related songs in a while. So it's really beautiful. I can link that too if I send that list of links. I think it would be interesting for many of you. We are actually writing a book with Karri Miettinen, with Paleface at the moment, and we are going to release a songbook with these wobbly songs with kind of music, with sheet music as well. And we are kind of writing the stories behind the songs and kind of trying to dig in more deeply. But it's actually in the process now, so I hope that it will. Perhaps we can say something about it in Duluth when next summer already. I hope. But it would be definitely in my interests in discussing with J. Karilainen as well, since I haven't talked with him about this topic.
We can do a whole a continuation panel.
Yeah, would be wonderful.
2023. We have someone else asking about the role of the Finnish evangelical church. Do you know anything about church involvement?
I actually, we have this, and I think he's coming to Duluth as well, Samuli Korkalainen, who has just started his research on the church Finns and their music. And he's a very good colleague of mine, and we are going to cooperate, I hope, and it would be interesting to see how these like workers movement, kind of church Finns and red Finns, how did they connect, or did they? And I know that there were these socialist groups as well that were religious, so it wasn't kind of totally cut in the middle. But unfortunately, I'm not an expert on that, but I hope that we will all get to hear Samuli next summer, or later, maybe in here someday as well.
Marianne asked in the chat, she wanted to know more about the children's songbook that was published in Astoria. Do you have more information on that?
Yes, I have. It's quite interesting. I have kept a presentation about it, so I don't, but it's a while ago, so I don't remember that much, but it's very interesting in a way that it's not really, and I have the book. I can send it to Marianne if she's interested. I have it in as PDF version. But it's very interesting book in a way, how if you want to kind of look at the atmosphere and kind of the because we have this project with Kirsti Salmi-Niklaner, who you probably know, and she's actually leading the T-Bone Slim project as well. She has done research on these Finnish American ABC books. And we actually had a presentation together where she was talking about those and kind of what kind of directions they gave to the children. And of course, it's very interesting if you think about the socialist children books or the other ones. And this songbook is very leftist in a way, that it really kind of teaches the children to fight and tell about the hard conditions, about what their parents needs to go through, and they are kind of preparing them to for the hard life that they need to face. So it's really interesting book. If you compare like these ABC books, for example, of the temperance movement, they are really kind of showing pictures from Finland, with this kind of lakeside and nice summer cottage or some cabin there, and it's very kind of nostalgic and so on. So this gives a totally different picture.
We also had, so someone's asking about the PowerPoint. I'll go ahead and say that we're going to post this on YouTube, so you'll be able to watch the PowerPoint again. But I would recommend then checking in with Saijaleena, just sending an email, and we'll put your email back into the chat, and people can check in with you about that. We have a question about Katri Lammi. Specifically, if you have any resources that you can point someone to learn more about her, whether there's a book or articles or something like that.
Yeah, well, this is something I know that Samira Saramo has done some research on her, and I've been discussing with Samira And there are many, and actually in Samira's dissertation, there is quite good a list of references that she has been using. So I would recommend to go there, because Samira's dissertation is online. I think it's open access, and you can go there. And there are I'm working on those materials now, and I found there is now this it's kind of a portal concerning these Finnish North Americans who left to the Soviet Karelia. And there are some material of Katri Lammi as well, not much, but something interesting. And it's there as well online. If you Google, or I can actually send a link to that too. So it's something, unfortunately, I don't speak or understand Russian. So it's there are some obstacles for me, but there are some Finnish materials as well about her. But she's definitely someone that I would like to know more about. So yeah, I'm not sure who was the person who asked, but I can of course, if I find more, I can share the information too.
Great, and I actually just put that link to Samira's dissertation. There it really is. There's a just fascinating, really fantastic section in there about Katri Lammi.
Yeah.
So definitely check that out if you're interested in learning more about her.
Yeah. Thank you for the homework.
Read more. We actually have a couple of comments here, which I think have been really, really wonderful and really interesting to think about, specifically with regards to Soviet Karelia and Finnish Americans and the rich musical tradition. Could you talk a little bit about kind of some of what, trying to think how to phrase this in a way that's useful. It's of course a really difficult and fascinating history, and some of it you touched on today, thinking through that, and Katri Lammi has a part in that, but so do a lot of Finnish Americans who kind of left to seek out whatever they were looking for. Mm-hmm. But so Roman here, Kushner comments about some of the younger, kind of a jazz band even in the area. And I'm wondering if you could talk about kind of some of the younger people and the different types of music, or if just comment a little bit more about that exchange, I guess we could call it.
Do you mean concerning Soviet Karelia?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is something as well that I am not so far yet in my research, but I know that there were, for example, they say that Finnish Americans took jazz to Petroskoi. For example, Petrosavox is Petros. What is Petroskoi in English? Petrosavox. However, yeah, to Soviet Karelia anyway. And Petrosavosk, yes, thank you very much. And there were also the symphony orchestra, which actually was, I think, something like 90% of the band of the orchestra were actually Finnish North Americans who went there. And then with Katri Lammi, and in theater too, yes, that's true. And then Katri Lammi and Jukka Ahti they were in the radio as well, and they really had an active role in there. And also there were these jazz clubs, and there were people coming from North America and really playing there. And it was, I think, yeah. And this is something that I need to discover more as well. But I think it was very, very active, and there were interesting musicians like Leo Kauppi, for example, who left with Katri Lammi and Jukka Ahti, and he was kind of one of the most famous record singers in the United States and so on. So it was really kind of there were classical music and popular music and jazz and folk and everything in between, I think.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I love that you said you don't know a ton about it, and then you just rattled off a really fantastic and wonderful
No.
answer about that. That was great. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I'll quickly add here there's a comment, was Viola Turpinen, was she included in the presentation? She was included in the presentation. So I'll suggest people go ahead and take a look at the recording there.
Yeah, very shortly, but she was there.
Yeah, and just fascinating and super important person in kind of Finnish America, as a musician, as a woman, as an immigrant. So.
And I really love Sylvia Polso as well. I think she was, even though her career was a little bit shorter, at least the career that she made in among Finnish North Americans, you know, because she left to play, and she was playing still. According to this material, what I just got from Tim, I'm quite excited because it gives a rather a lot new information about her career as well, what happened after. So she went to play to American clubs, I think, and so on. So she wasn't didn't want to be, or I don't know if she wanted to be, but like she ended up playing in American audiences, to American audiences.
That's awesome. With the last couple minutes here, unless there are any additional questions, I think what I might do is ask Eileen, if you could try to share your screen one last time.
Sure.
Yeah, Saijaleena.
Can I just, is it possible for me to get the chat?
Yeah, absolutely. I will get you that.
Perfect.
For sure. Yeah.
And hey, thank you everybody for very, very, very good questions. That's why I want to have them, and you know, it's good for me as well to continue with my research.
Yeah, this was really wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this. Fantastic research, fantastic music, fantastic presentation, bringing it all together. Super excited to see where it goes also. I'll note, we're gonna go ahead, and of course, when we send out the YouTube video to all of you and to everyone who registered, we'll also include some of the links to the YouTube videos that Saijaleena has shown, and a couple additional links for further research and that sort of thing if you're interested, so that people can follow along, but also learn more about the really wonderful things that Saijaleena and so many of your coworkers, these collaborative projects you all are working on, I think are just fantastic. It's super cool to see. So thank you, Saijaleena. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to hand it over to Eileen. We'll try to get this screen sharing to work, because right now I'm staring at a black screen that says,
yeah, and I don't know it just says my screen sharing is paused, so who knows. But you will, yeah, I don't know, it was working in our practice run, so I don't know what happened, but just be on the lookout. We're going to be launching registration for the 2023 festival in November, which is rapidly approaching. So keep an eye out for our newsletters, our Facebook page, and also we'll be updating the website as well. So yeah, get excited, and we'll hopefully see many of you in Duluth in 2023.
That sounds fantastic. And when that launches, because it's not quite live yet, we will of course send out the link,
yes,
so that everyone can get that registration going. And we'll see y'all in Duluth in less than a year now.
Yeah,
there are a couple more FinnFest presentations, webinars yet this year. So be on the lookout for those announcements.
yes, you'll be getting all sorts of fun emails and website updates with links and exciting new presentations.
And before we sign off here, I am going to go ahead and put Saijaleena's email address into the chat one last time, so that you can check in with her and follow up with any questions you might have, any exciting resources that you might have. I think that's one of the fun things that we often see with these presentations, that a lot of you are kind of holding all sorts of great information. You've got cool letters from family members, you've got songbooks, you've got all sorts of amazing resources that we find you often are willing to share with researchers like Saijaleena, which is always appreciated. So Sajaleena's email address is in there in the chat. So send her an email. And with that, everyone, enjoy the rest of your day, your evening. Saijaleena in Finland, I hope the weather improves, but it is going into November, so maybe we'll talk to you in May. And have a good one, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.